All right, in this video, we're going to be talking about imaginary numbers, and this is the first part of 4.6. You'll need to make sure you watch the second part for the quadratic formula. So let's get started. First off, we have different types of numbers. Now, you have learned about real numbers, and real numbers are numbers that include both rational and irrational numbers. Rational numbers are your integers, and these are some examples, -2, 0, 1. Fractions like 1/2, and decimals 2.5, or it can be written as a fraction. And irrational numbers such as square root of 3, pi, etc. Basically anything that's not a perfect root. And all of those are real numbers, and you've learned about those. Now we're going to add another set of numbers, and those are called imaginary numbers. So here's your real numbers that you've learned, and we're adding another set which is imaginary. Imaginary numbers are numbers when squared, it gives a negative result. So in other words, imaginary numbers are defined as the square root of the negative number, where it does not have a definite value, so it can't be simplified to anything. It is mostly written in the form of real numbers multiplied by an imaginary unit called I. So the square root of -1, if you were to enter that into your calculator, it would say error. But what we can do is we can actually factor out that -1, and we can rewrite it as an imaginary number of I. Now here you just see complex numbers. That's just a mixture of real numbers and imaginary numbers. So A and B are real numbers, and then I would be your imaginary. But we're focused more on real numbers and imaginary numbers today. All right, so let's go ahead and let's get started. And what we're going to do is we're going to simplify the radical expression, but remember, the square root of -1 equals I. So we're going to simplify that out. So we do the same thing we did before, where you're going to factor. And this is -1 times 30. So we separated that. And -1, we said we can rewrite as I. And then square root of 30 can't be simplified anymore, so it's just I. Now we always like to write in plus or minus whenever we're doing with the radicals, because it could be either option. And that's it. That's your answer, is root -30 is plus or minus I times root 30. All right. For number 2, you have 4 outside of radical square root of -90. So let's break down 90. I know that has a -1 in there, and I also know there's a 9 in there, and there's a 10. And then of course we have 4 out front. So let's go ahead and let's simplify. I know that this is the same as 3. I know square root of -1 is the same as I. And don't forget we had that 4 out front. Root 10, and then go ahead and you'll get 12I times root 10. And then again, since we're dealing with square roots, you're going to put the plus or minus out front, and then that's simplified. All right, I want you to try number 3. And then for number 4, I'm going to zoom in some on number 4. For number 4, this is a little different because we have a fraction within this. So what we're going to do is we're still going to simplify this radical, and we're going to go 10 plus, and we know that 50 is the same as 25 times root 2, and then that's all going to be over 5. So then go ahead and let's go 10 plus 5 root 2 over 5, because we simplified this to that 5. All right, so now what we're going to do is we need to simplify the fraction. So there's a couple ways to look at this. We know that this 5 goes with here, and we know this 5 goes here. So you could just simplify both of those, and then you would get 2 over root 2. But I'm going to show you how to do this a different way if you notice you keep making that same mistake. So what I like to do sometimes is I'll take, especially if I keep making the same mistake, is I take the denominator and I just break up the fraction. So here's what I'll do. I go 10 over 5 plus 5 root 2 over 5. And if you notice, This is the same 5 that was down here. So we just broke it up, and then you can go ahead and you can go 2 plus, and then that simplifies root 2. And that's your answer. Or you could just do 10 plus 5 root 2 over 5, and just know that, oops, these two, oh, hello. These two simplify to 2, and then these, and I'll do blue, and these two simplify to root 2, and then this plus sign in the middle. So either way works, just make sure you're careful with that. All right, and then for number 7, excuse me, you have 8 square root of negative 36 all over 2. So let's go ahead and let's simplify this. When we're simplifying this, we've got a negative right here. So we know that this is going to get I. So let's go ahead and let's factor that out. So we have 8 plus or minus, and remember, this is the same as root negative 1 times root 36, so we have our perfect squares, and it's all over 2. And then remember, negative 1, root negative 1 is the same as I. We know that root 36 is the same as 6. And then you have your 8 plus or minus, and it's all over 2. So again, if you're good with simplifying and you aren't making silly mistakes, you could just simplify this to 4 plus or minus 3i. If you notice you're making your mistake, you can always rewrite it. 8 over 2 plus or minus 6i over 2. And remember that this 2, oops, is the same as these two 2's. Okay, so then just simplify from there. Ooh. Hello. So you get the same answer either way. But again, if you're making silly mistakes, break up your fraction. All right. So what you're going to do is you're going to finish all of those. I am going to do number 9 for you because number 9 we can simplify and you'll actually have 2 different answers for it. So let's go ahead, let's simplify this radical. So we're going to get 3 plus or minus, and it's 3 because the square root of 9 is 3, and that's over 3. So you've got 2 options. One option is your plus. So you're going to go 3 plus 3 over 3, and then that's going to give you 6 over 3, which equals 2. So that's one answer. And now, since you have this minus, you also have to go this way. And the reason we can do this is because we know the value and it's simplified. We didn't have an imaginary number or a radical or anything. We can actually find the value of that. All right. So what you're going to do is you're going to go back and you're going to complete the rest of these. And if you did these correctly, number 3 should be plus or minus 2i times root 30. Number 6 should be 2. Number 5, oops, I went backwards. Number 5 should be negative 1 plus I root 3 divided by 2. And then 8 should be 1 plus or minus 2 root 2 over 3. So just remember, when you're dealing with numbers, if you're to have a radical, if you're to have a negative under a radical, it's the same as I, which is an imaginary number.